9:12 a.m., the glass atrium of Nordheim Holdings, Berlin. Employees in tailored suits flowed. A janitor, Lukas Brandt, mopped near the VIP elevators. Adrian Keller, 41, the Billionaire CEO, emerged with his entourage and suddenly froze. His eyes fixed on a wet streak on the polished granite. His voice cut through the murmur. "Do you even know how to clean? This is Nordheim, not a pigsty." The janitor bowed, a soft apology barely heard. As he turned away, his sleeve snagged on his equipment, rolling up to expose his wrist. An old faded tattoo appeared. Adrian stared, paralyzed. He whispered, his composure shattered. "That mark, it's impossible." Lukas Brandt, 38, was a man defined by absence. He was a single father, a janitor on the early shift at Nordheim Holdings, and a ghost in the city he once called home. 4 years earlier, his world had imploded when his beloved wife passed away after a swift, brutal battle with cancer. Now his entire focus was anchored by his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, a bright, sensitive girl who saw the universe in his quiet strength. Lukas's current life was meticulously scaled down to be functional and invisible. They shared a cramped but spotless apartment on the city's outskirts. His morning routine was a silent ballet of precision, a pre-dawn alarm, the ritual folding of Emma's laundry, the packing of his own cold lunch. He carried his day in a worn backpack, uniform thermos, and a faint but constant anxiety about meeting the rent. Yet Lukas Brandt was not always this man. His shoulders carried the invisible weight of discipline, forged not by scrubbing floors, but by strategic command. He was economical with movement, silent in observation, and always aware of his surroundings. These were the residues of a life spent in the shadows, a life where his word was law and his survival instinct was legendary. At Nordheim Holdings, he was just the janitor. The high-powered, glamorous staff rarely used his name. They stepped over his buckets, complained if he was too slow, and looked right through him. He existed purely as a utility, a moving fixture in the background of their ambitious lives. The CEO, Adrian Keller, was the physical embodiment of the company's ethos. Cold, brilliant, and intolerant of any perceived weakness or imperfection. Adrian had built his financial empire on aggressive mergers and zero-error execution. He was under immense pressure. A crucial multi-billion-euro acquisition was hitting delays, and his sleep had become a casualty. The morning of the public humiliation was a breaking point for Adrian. He was late for a high-stakes video conference with investors. The slightest friction felt like a global catastrophe. When he spotted the wet patch on the floor near the VIP entrance, a minor oversight by Lukas, all his stress and frustration condensed into that single moment of cruelty. "Do you even know how to clean properly? This is Nordheim, not a pigsty." Adrian's voice had been a whip crack, immediately silencing the lobby. Lukas felt the familiar sting of public contempt, but he didn't raise his eyes. He executed the apology instantly, a quiet, almost inaudible, "My apologies, sir. It will be corrected immediately." He had mastered the art of non-confrontation. His submission was not weakness. It was an act of profound, deliberate protection. He thought instantly of Emma. Just that morning before he left, she had looked up at him with her large, innocent eyes and given him his marching orders for the day. "Daddy, don't fight bad people. Just come home." His true battle was not with the arrogant CEO, but with the world trying to steal his time with his daughter. He needed this job. He needed to be invisible. He needed to survive. Later in the sterile silence of the janitorial closet, Lukas changed his gloves. He paused, his hand hovering over the wrist he kept meticulously covered. Beneath the faded, thin fabric of his work shirt, protected from the world, was the faded ink. The tattoo was a stylized eagle gripping a lightning bolt, the insignia of an elite European military unit known only to a few. It was the sole physical testament to the man he used to be, a commander of men, a master of strategy, and a legend who had voluntarily chosen to disappear. He touched the mark gently. It was a secret he carried like a sacred vow, a quiet memory of a powerful life he sacrificed for a simple, indispensable one. The incident in the lobby was immediately amplified by the corporate rumor mill. In the polished, competitive hierarchy of Nordheim, Humiliating the lowest-ranked employee was simply a sport. The CEO just shredded the janitor, was the whispered gossip by the coffee machines. Most employees took it as validation of their own superior status. Lukas, true to his wordless survival strategy, continued his rounds, his face a mask of neutral compliance. He scrubbed the shame from the marble as diligently as he scrubbed the dirt. The external pressure, however, was harder to erase. The next day, Lukas received a call from Emma's school. She had gotten into a fight. When he met the principal, he found Emma sitting alone, her chin set in a stubborn, unhappy pout. "They were talking about you, Daddy," Emma confessed, tears finally blurring her eyes. "They said my dad is nothing. They said he just cleans other people's shoes. And I told them my dad is the strongest person in the world. And they laughed." Lukas pulled his daughter close, inhaling the scent of school pencils and children's glue. The injustice of the corporate world had breached his personal fortress. He was used to the scorn hitting him, but the moment it touched Emma, it felt like a moral failure. He couldn't offer her a better life, a life free from the stigma of his low-status job. All he could offer was presence, and now even that was tainted. "I'm so sorry, Emma," he whispered into her hair. It was all he could manage. At work, the jibes escalated. A young, ambitious manager, freshly promoted and seeking to impress, stopped Lukas in a deserted hallway. "Hey, Brandt," the manager sneered, tapping his expensive loafers against the freshly buffed floor. "You should clean faster if you want to stay invisible. No one likes a slow, visible target, right?" Lukas simply nodded, his eyes fixed on the floor, allowing the man to mistake his silence for apathy. He was an expert at masking the intense, internal heat of his self-control. Adrian's blind spot, the cost of contempt. Adrian Keller, meanwhile, was completely oblivious. He operated in a constant state of tunnel vision, measuring all human value solely by productivity and net contribution. He didn't just forget Lukas's face. He didn't even register him as a human variable. This blindness was a corporate weapon, but a personal failing. He was consumed by the mounting crisis. For several weeks, his top-tier cybersecurity team had been tracking subtle intrusions into their core systems. Data packets were being siphoned off, not randomly, but with a terrifying surgical precision, targeting the ongoing merger documents. The stakes were astronomical, and panic was quietly blooming in the executive suites. Adrian's detachment was highlighted during a casual lunch with his head of acquisitions. "The cleaning staff is an unnecessary cost center," Adrian remarked, not looking up from his tablet. "We should outsource everything, cut the internal liability." The irony that the man he was planning to fire would soon be the only thing standing between him and bankruptcy was lost on him completely. He viewed their jobs as expendable, their lives irrelevant, a number on a balance sheet to be optimized. Lukas felt the weight of the mop handle in his hands. It was infinitely heavier than the assault rifle he used to command, yet the former was what paid for Emma's school supplies. Every evening he checked his bank balance, a meager stream replacing the substantial, tax-free funds that once flowed into his account. The physical demands of the janitorial work, the constant bending, the repetitive scrubbing, were a dull ache compared to the sharp, focused pain of combat. But this new ache was persistent, relentless, and a constant reminder of his stripped-down status. He traded adrenaline for exhaustion, prestige for peace. Lukas noticed this pattern of calculated disregard everywhere. He knew the maintenance workers, the delivery drivers, and the cafeteria staff, the unseen skeleton crew that kept the glamorous operation running. They were all treated with the same casual contempt. It fueled Lukas's resolve to remain silent. He knew if he revealed his past, he would become a novelty, a spectacle, destroying the precious normalcy he had built for Emma. The unseen threat and Lukas's instincts. One evening, while running the vacuum cleaner in the otherwise empty West Wing, Lukas noticed something truly out of place. He wasn't looking for security flaws, he was just observing. High on the wall near a rarely used emergency stairwell, the small red recording light on a security camera was blinking at a slightly irregular cadence. It was a minute difference, one that the company's automated surveillance software, designed to detect motion and mass changes, would never flag. But Lukas's special forces training had been built on detecting the unseen anomaly, the subtle deviation from the expected pattern. He realized the camera had been physically tampered with, just enough to create a momentary, repeating blind spot, a perfect, silent window for a human intruder to pass undetected. This wasn't a remote hack, it was a physical breach, meticulously planned. Lukas felt a familiar, cold adrenaline rush. The stakes were no longer just financial, they were strategic and required his unique expertise. Lukas immediately reported his finding to the night security chief, describing the irregular light pulse. The chief, a jaded man who viewed the janitor with mild pity, dismissed him with a patronizing pat on the shoulder. "Thanks for the heads up, pal. Now get back to the waste bins. Those cameras are state-of-the-art, Brandt." Dismissed but not deterred, Lukas returned to the hallway after his shift officially ended. He bypassed the complex digital security, which he knew was flawed, and used a simple, low-tech method. He checked the wiring, found the barely visible cut, and realized the camera feed was being momentarily rerouted through a local, Wi-Fi-enabled micro-device concealed in the ceiling tile. It was a professional job designed by someone who understood network security and physical intrusion equally well. This was clearly an inside job, leveraging the physical vulnerability of the building, a textbook approach he used to teach his own men. He secured the device knowing it was the key piece of evidence, but decided to wait. He would not trust the evidence to the indifferent security team. He knew that the only way Adrian would listen was if the situation escalated to a point of no return. He needed to be the solution, not the messenger. That night, Emma, sitting on the sofa, proudly showed him a new drawing. It was crayon on construction paper. A vibrant, slightly wobbly image of a man in a crisp, dark uniform with a shining golden badge pinned to his chest. "That's you, Daddy," she announced, her eyes full of genuine belief. "The badge says, Protector." Lukas felt a hollow ache in his chest. He was wearing a uniform, yes, but it was beige, stained, and utterly badgeless. He looked at the drawing, a silent plea from his daughter to reclaim the dignity the world had stripped from him. He had to show her and himself that the true uniform was never about the badge, but the man wearing it. The next morning, chaos erupted at Nordheim. The subtle data leak had turned into a catastrophic, full-scale system attack. The hackers, using the undetected physical access Lukas had identified, had launched a devastating worm that locked down the company's proprietary trading engine. Billions were at stake. The merger was now hanging by a thread. The atmosphere in the headquarters was one of sheer terror, a silence broken only by frantic, desperate phone calls. In the executive conference room, Adrian Keller was pacing, his usual icy control completely gone. He was shouting into his phone, demanding intervention from national security agencies, but it was too late. The system was dead. The board, assembled via video link, was on the brink of revolt. "We are losing millions every minute, Adrian. Do something," one director shrieked from the screen. Suddenly, a commotion started outside the glass walls. Two security guards were struggling with a man in a janitorial uniform. "I told you, you can't enter the server room. It's locked down," one guard yelled, attempting to restrain the man. It was Lukas. He had bypassed the digital lockout using a series of old analog override codes. Codes designed to survive a total blackout. Codes he knew intimately from another life. He knew exactly where the intruder was operating from and needed to physically access the server bank to isolate the node. "Let him go!" Adrian roared, frustrated beyond measure, yet strangely intrigued by the janitor's sudden audacity. "If he thinks he can help, let him try. At this point, what have we got to lose? It's already gone." Adrian's voice carried the sound of a man drowning. The security guards released Lukas, who immediately rushed to the main server racks. He pulled a small, specialized USB drive from his worn jacket pocket, a device he hadn't used in years. It contained a custom-built, military-grade countermeasure capable of isolating the specific malware signature. To execute the precise surgical counter-hack needed to isolate the worm without destroying the entire system, He needed unhindered movement. Lukas quickly ripped the soiled, restrictive janitor shirt from his torso, the cotton tearing slightly, leaving him only in a plain, faded gray t-shirt. He bent over the wires, his back to the stunned audience in the boardroom. The security guards still hovered, unsure, completely overshadowed by the unfolding technological crisis. As Lukas plunged the drive into the server port, his right forearm strained with the movement as he braced himself against the metal frame. His t-shirt sleeve rode up, fully exposing his wrist. And there it was. Not a scar, but a symbol. The stylized eagle and lightning bolt. Now fully visible, undeniable proof of a past life. Adrian Keller, watching from the boardroom monitor, choked on air. The symbol wasn't just a military emblem. It was the mark of Unit Delta, an ultra-secret European counterterrorism special operations force. But Adrian knew more, much more. His mind screamed back 15 years to a cold, dark basement in the Balkans. Adrian's memory flooded back with blinding clarity. He didn't just remember the tattoo, he recalled the metallic scent of his own blood and the choking dust of the Balkan hideout. He remembered the commander's voice, low, precise, giving orders in 3 languages simultaneously, and the immediate absolute trust he placed in that voice. He saw the gleam of the commander's tactical knife and the lightning-fast surgical way he had neutralized the threats. To Adrian, that man was a mythical warrior, a phantom of war. Seeing him here, pushing a cleaning cart, was an intellectual and emotional impossibility. Adrian had been told by the intelligence agencies that the commander had been gravely wounded and died ensuring his escape before the local military arrived. Adrian had mourned the man, built a memorial wing in his foundation, and lived with the quiet guilt of surviving where his hero perished. Twist 1. The commander is alive. Adrian rose, pushing his expensive chair backward with a deafening screech that went unnoticed in the chaos. He walked toward the screen, trembling uncontrollably, his powerful voice replaced by a raw, desperate gasp. "It's him," he whispered, the name of the unit commander escaping his lips. "The commander. They told me he was dead." Lukas, entirely focused on the console, finally managed to push the counter script. The screen flashed green, then scrolled hundreds of lines of code. The attack was neutralized. The proprietary trading engine blinked back to life. He turned slowly, holding the crucial micro device he had recovered last night. Adrian rushed out of the boardroom, his entourage scrambling to follow. He found Lukas standing by the server rack, the grime from the cleaning supplies mixing with the sweat of the emergency intervention. Adrian stood before him, the billionaire, utterly exposed, humbled to the core. "You, Commander, you saved my life 15 years ago. You were Lukas. I gave €1 million to your foundation. You were a hero. Why are you here? Why are you cleaning my floors?" Adrian's voice was broken, stripped of its arrogance. Twist 2. The soldier's sacrifice. Lukas walked calmly out of the server room, the micro device held loosely in his hand. He stopped directly in front of the horrified boardroom camera, his powerful tattooed arm clearly in the frame. His eyes met Adrian's, not with anger over the past insults, but with a deep, weary clarity that spoke of burdens carried. "The foundation was for my men, Mr. Keller, not me," Lukas stated, his voice now strong, commanding, and utterly unfamiliar to the employees listening. "After the mission, I didn't just retire. I asked to disappear completely. The life of a soldier, even a commander, is incompatible with the needs of a single child." He looked at Adrian, his gaze unwavering. "My daughter's mother passed away. She needed a father who was present, who tucked her into bed, and who could guarantee her safety every day. She didn't need a soldier fighting wars on foreign soil. She needed the simple, quiet stability of a janitor. I didn't come here to be someone important again, Mr. Keller. I came here to survive and to be a father. That is why I clean your floors." The silence that followed was monumental. The entire company had just witnessed their arrogant CEO brought to his knees by the moral high ground of the janitor he had scorned. Adrian Keller, the cold, ruthless leader, looked utterly undone. He had insulted and demeaned a man who had not only saved his life, but had also chosen the ultimate sacrifice, trading honor, power, and prestige for a mop and a daughter. Lukas had not come for revenge, fame, or money. He had simply acted, saved the day, and was now ready to vanish back into the shadows. Without another word, he handed the evidence to the head of security, pulled his janitor's shirt back on, and walked away, leaving the humiliated Adrian to face the devastating truth. The aftermath was immediate and transformative. Adrian Keller, a man whose public appearances were usually confined to economic summits, called an all-hands meeting that afternoon. He stood before his entire staff, visibly shaken, and did the unthinkable. "I owe an apology to this company, but more importantly, I owe an apology to a man I severely wronged," Adrian began, his voice flat with forced humility. He detailed the truth, the kidnapping, the Unit Delta commander who saved his life, and the shocking discovery that the man he had scorned was his rescuer. "Lukas Brandt is not just our janitor," Adrian concluded. "He is a hero who chose family over glory. My behavior was inexcusable, and I will not tolerate that level of disrespect toward any employee, regardless of their position, ever again." The cultural shift began instantly. Employees who had laughed now looked down in shame. The invisible janitor became the most respected man in the building. People greeted him by name, held doors, and even started trying to help him with his equipment. An awkward, but genuine, attempt at amends. Adrian personally sought out Lukas and presented him with an offer that reflected his true worth. "Lukas, I need you. I'm offering you the position of Chief Security Officer. Full autonomy, commensurate salary, and a seat on the executive committee. It is what you deserve." Lukas listened patiently, but ultimately shook his head. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Keller, but no, I told you, I didn't come here to be someone again. I came to survive. I need my small, predictable routine. The life of a CSO means being tethered to a desk, to meetings, and to travel. I cannot and will not miss Emma's school play for a board meeting." Adrian understood. He saw that Lukas's integrity was a force even bigger than $1 billion salary. He adjusted the proposal. A part-time role as a high-level security consultant, paid at an executive rate, flexible hours, and no public visibility. Lukas could maintain his simple life, but with financial stability. Lukas accepted. The turning point for the community came when Adrian invited Emma to the office for a special tour. As Emma walked the pristine hallways, holding her father's newly scrubbed hand, a long-term executive, a stern woman famous for her cold demeanor, knelt down to Emma's level. "Emma," the executive said softly, completely abandoning her corporate mask, "your dad is a real hero. He saved all of our jobs today." The executive's words were amplified by the newfound respect. Emma looked up at Lukas, her small face radiating pure, unadulterated pride. Emma squeezed his hand so tightly it was almost painful. "I'm proud of you, Daddy. You didn't fight the bad people. You just saved the day." Adrian, watching the exchange, finally understood the true measure of a man. It wasn't the size of his holdings, but the size of his devotion. He immediately instituted a new company-wide policy, emphasizing respect across all roles, from the cleaning staff to the corner office. The lesson was learned the hard way. Arrogance had nearly cost him his company and his life. This story is a testament to the fact that real strength isn't about status, but about sacrifice and commitment. If you believe real strength isn't about status and that dignity belongs to everyone, type, "I will live kindly." Lukas transitioned into his consulting role seamlessly. He still arrived early, but instead of pushing a cart, he was in a secure terminal, analyzing threat vectors and training the security team. He was still Lukas Brandt, disciplined and observant, but now he was respected for his intrinsic worth, not just his function. Adrian, seeking to fully bridge the gap between their two worlds, insisted on visiting Lukas's apartment. The CEO, accustomed to sprawling, sterile penthouses, was visibly moved by the small, warm space filled with children's toys, old books, and the genuine, unpretentious scent of home-cooked meals. While Lukas was making coffee, Adrian knelt beside Emma, who was attempting to build a complex Lego castle. "Emma, your father saved my life twice," Adrian said quietly, his voice full of genuine emotion. "Once many years ago, and again just this week. He taught me a lesson I should have already known." Emma looked up, her father's simple heroism already a fact of life. "Daddy says everyone has a job. His job is being a dad and fixing things." Lukas emerged with the coffee, noticing Adrian's humility. He walked over to the small storage area and took down his old janitorial uniform. He folded it neatly, no shame, no regret, and placed it into a box. It wasn't being discarded, it was being archived, a symbol of the hard-won chapter that had given him his daughter and his present peace. The closing symbolism. The faded tattoo on his wrist, the mark of the commander, was no longer concealed by a sleeve or a uniform of anonymity. It was simply there, a visible testament to the man who had done the work, whatever the uniform required. He no longer needed to hide his greatness because the world had finally acknowledged his dignity. The single father had taught the billionaire CEO that value is not measured in net worth, but in moral fortitude. The message: never judge a man by the floor he cleans. You never know the lives he's already saved. Lukas kissed Emma goodbye as she ran into the school gates, her backpack bouncing. The early morning sun caught the light in her hair. He was no longer the invisible janitor. He was the protector, the commander, the father, all roles united in a single honorable man. He climbed into his modest car, ready for a day where his work was valued and his identity was whole. He had nothing left to prove. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to Chip Healing Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten.